Vivid verses.
The coffee was already poured when she came down the stairs, and I had decided sometime around 3 in the morning that I would not soften it. Softening was how this whole thing had calcified in the first place. 26 years of small accommodations stacked into a wall I could no longer see over. She padded into the kitchen in the wool socks she'd worn since she was 12, her hair still flattened on one side from the pillow. 23 years old and still my daughter in those first 30 seconds of any morning before the day's defenses arrived. She kissed the top of my head as she passed, the way she always did when she was home, and reached for the mug I'd set out for her. "You're up early," she said. "I wanted to talk to you before your mother gets up." She turned. I watched the registration happen in her face. "Wanted to talk to you" is a phrase that contains its own warning, and Hazel had always been quick. She set the mug down without filling it. "Is someone sick?" "No, everyone's healthy." "Okay." She sat across from me at the small table by the window, the one where I'd helped her with chemistry homework when she was 16, and where, more recently, she had sat with her mother to plan a graduation trip I'd paid for and not been invited on. The geometry of this table had a long memory. I took a sip of coffee. I had rehearsed this in my head for weeks, and the rehearsal had taught me one thing. The worst version of this conversation was the one where I performed any feeling at all. If I cried, she would manage me. If I sounded angry, she would correct me. If I sounded wounded, she would pity me and then resent me for needing pity. The only version that survived contact with her was the one delivered flat, like a weather report. "Keep your hands on the mug. Don't gesture. Don't lean forward." She'll read, leaning forward as pleading. "I filed for divorce 3 weeks ago," I said. "Your mother was served on Tuesday. I'll be out of the house by New Year's." For a long moment, the kitchen made all the small noises a kitchen makes. The hum of the refrigerator compressor, the tick of the radiator. She had gone very still, which was, I knew from a lifetime of watching her, the posture she adopted before an eruption. Her mother had taught her this. Hold very still until you know what shape to take. "You're joking," she said. "I'm not, Dad." She laughed once, a short, disbelieving sound. "You're not." "I'm not joking, and I'm not changing my mind. I wanted you to hear it from me, in person, before you heard anything else." The eruption arrived on schedule. "Are you out of your mind?" She stood up. The chair scraped. 3 weeks ago? You filed 3 weeks ago, and you waited until I was home for break to tell me? Well, I'm sleeping upstairs. You let me come home thinking we were going to put up the tree, and... Sit down, please." "I will not sit down." "Where's Mom? Does Mom know you've told me?" She must be destroyed, and you're sitting here drinking coffee like. "Hazel, sit down." She didn't sit down, but she stopped talking. I had used the voice I used perhaps twice in her childhood, the one that meant this is not a negotiation, and you know it. "Good. Now don't waste it." I let the silence work for a second longer than was comfortable. The trick was that I wasn't performing patience. I genuinely had it. 3 weeks of having already crossed this bridge had given me a kind of stillness that was, I could see, unnerving her more than any speech would have. "Sit down," I said again, quietly, "and I'll answer any question you want to ask me." She sat. Her arms were crossed so tightly her shoulders had hiked toward her ears. "How could you do this to her?" "That isn't a question, but I'll treat it as one. I'm not doing anything to her. I'm choosing not to be married to her anymore." Those are different sentences. Oh my God. She pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes. "Listen to yourself. Different sentences. This is your wife. This is my mother. This is our family. Yes. And you're just... What? You're tired? You're bored? You met someone? I haven't met anyone." "Then why, Dad? Christmas is in 8 days. You couldn't wait 3 weeks? You couldn't wait until January? Here it comes. Here's where she tries to relocate the conversation. The timing becomes the crime, because the timing is something she can win. If I'd waited until January, I said, you'd be asking me why I let you have a Christmas in a house I was about to leave. We could do the timing argument if you want. It doesn't end anywhere good for either of us. She stared at me. I could see her recalibrating. She had come down the stairs expecting her father, and she was finding someone who had, in some way she couldn't yet name, gotten out from under her. You're being selfish, she said. Possibly. That's it. Possibly. I've considered the possibility for a long time. I've decided I'm willing to be called selfish if that's the cost of the decision. So yes, possibly. What's the next question? What about commitment, Dad? You stood up in a church 28 years ago. So that means nothing? It means a great deal. It's why this took so long. She made a small, frustrated sound. I watched her hand reach for her phone on the table and then pull back. She wants to text her mother. She wants reinforcements. She is figuring out that her mother is asleep upstairs and may, for the first time in her life, be on the losing side of a conversation in this house. Don't push. Let her get there. Does she know you're telling me this morning? She asked. No, you didn't. You and Mom didn't sit down together and... We sat down together. Several times. With a mediator once. She knows where I stand. She knows the timeline. She doesn't know I'm telling you this morning. No, I decided that without her. Decided that without her. Hazel repeated, almost to herself. Yes. She was quiet then, and I knew the pause well enough not to fill it. Hazel had inherited her mother's gift for staging silence as a weapon, but she'd also inherited, somewhere from me, the habit of actually thinking inside one. I could see her trying to fit what I was saying into the story she'd been carrying since the airport yesterday. The story in which she was coming home for the usual choreography of cocoa and stockings and the slow, comforting boredom of family. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped a register. Dad, whatever's going on, whatever you're feeling, couples go through hard years. You don't. It hasn't been a year. What? It hasn't been a hard year. I want to be clear about that because I think you're about to offer me counseling and I want to save you the time. This isn't a rough patch. It hasn't been a rough patch in a long time. How long? Long enough that the word patch doesn't apply. How long, Dad? Here. This is the moment. She has asked. Now you answer, and you don't decorate it. I set my coffee down. Your mother and I have slept in separate rooms for 15 years, I said. At her insistence. Initially, she said it was my snoring. Then it was her back. Then it was that she just slept better that way. We'd never gone back. Not once. Not on anniversaries. Not after we lost your grandmother. Not after the surgery I had 4 years ago when I was, frankly, frightened. 15 years. Her mouth opened. She closed it. I went on. Not faster. Not slower. I have bought myself a birthday card every year for the last 11 years. I keep them in the bottom drawer of my desk. I started doing it the year nobody remembered because it bothered me that I'd spent the day feeling sorry for myself, and I decided I'd rather buy myself a card than do that again. It's a small thing. I'm telling you because it's a small thing. Dad, I paid for the trip to the coast for your 16th birthday. I didn't go. Your mother told me you and she needed girl time, and I agreed because at the time I thought it was sweet. I paid for your study abroad. I paid for the kitchen renovation your mother planned with her sister, the one I came home to find finished. I paid for the dog, the second dog, the fence for the dog, and the trainer for the dog who, as you know, doesn't come to me. None of these are complaints. I'm listing them because I want you to understand that I'm not confused about my role in this household. I've been very clear about it for a long time. I just stopped being willing to play it. Her eyes were wet. She wasn't crying yet. She was at the stage just before crying, where the body knows but the face hasn't agreed. Why didn't you say something? I did. To me, Dad. You were a child, and then you were a teenager, and then you were a young woman, And at no point in any of those stages would it have been appropriate for me to make you the referee in my marriage. I won't apologize for that part. Don't soften here. Don't reach for her hand. She'll mistake the touch for an apology, and you don't owe her an apology. But you let me. She stopped. She tried again. You let me think. She didn't finish the sentence. I waited. You let me think what? I said gently, not because I didn't know. I knew exactly what she'd been about to say, but because she needed to be the one to say it. You let me think she was the normal one, she said. It came out small. It came out almost not at all. And I thought, there it is. That's the door. Now don't kick it open. Just stand near it. She is normal, I said. She's a normal person who treats me a particular way. You grew up inside that particular way. It was the water you swam in. I'm not asking you to renounce your mother, Hazel. I'm not asking you to take a side. I'm telling you why I'm leaving, because you deserve to know, and because if I don't tell you, she will tell you a different story, and I'd rather you hear both. What's her story going to be? I imagine it's going to be that I'm having a midlife crisis, that I'm being cold, that I've shut her out, and that she's the one who's been holding this family together while I checked out. Hazel finished, almost without meaning to. Yes, that one. She looked at the table. I watched her trace the grain of it with one finger, the way she had as a girl when she was working something out and didn't want to be watched while she worked it out. I had taught her that table was a thinking surface. I had bought her first sketchbook on the basis that she needed a portable version of it. Don't speak. Let her get there. The card thing, she said after a long time. Yes, that can't be right. I sent you cards. You sent me cards when you were at school and your mother reminded you. When you were home, the day passed. It's not your fault. You were a kid. I'm not telling you to make you feel guilty. Then why are you telling me? Because you asked me how long, and I'm answering. She nodded slowly. She was, I realized, doing arithmetic. Hazel had always been good at arithmetic. She was running her childhood through a different filter, and things were coming up in different columns than they had a moment ago. The summer we went to the lake, she said. When I was 12, you didn't come. I had to work. You always had to work. She said it like a quotation. Mom used to say that. Your father always has to work. It was a joke. We made it a joke. We had a song about it. Do you remember? I remember. I always thought you were, I don't know, distant. I thought you wanted to be at the office. I thought you liked the office more than us. Hazel, I thought that, Dad. I thought you were choosing not to come. I wasn't invited. The word hung there. Invited. She blinked at it. What do you mean you weren't invited? I mean, your mother told me, the spring of that year, that she'd been thinking about it, and she felt like the lake had become her time with you, that she didn't want to feel like a chaperone, that she wanted a week where she could just be your mom without performing a marriage for the in-laws. I agreed because I wanted her to have what she wanted, and because I told myself I'd take you somewhere, just the two of us in the fall. We never did. Something always came up. Something always came up for 12 years. She was crying now, quietly, not for show. The face had agreed. I did not reach across the table. I had decided in the rehearsals that I would not reach across the table. The hardest part isn't saying it. The hardest part is letting her sit in it for the time she needs to sit in it. Don't rescue her from it. The rescue is what got us all here. I have to think about this, she said. That's fair. I have to. She wiped her face with the back of her wrist, the way she had when she was little. I have to talk to Mom. Of course. And I'm not promising I'm going to come out where you want me to come out. I haven't asked you to. You're telling me all this for a reason, Dad. Don't pretend you're not. You're telling me all this so that when she comes to me, I'm telling you all this because you're an adult and because you asked. If I wanted to recruit you, I would have done a much better job of it years ago. I had every opportunity. That landed. I watched it land. She got up. She didn't take the coffee with her. She stood at the window for a moment, looking out the bare yard, The dogwood-eyed plant of the year she was born and her mother had decided, last spring, to have trimmed back into a shape I didn't recognize. The shape had bothered me more than I'd let on. I'd thought about it more than was reasonable. "When did you decide?" she asked without turning around. "To file. To leave." I considered the question. "There wasn't a moment," I said. "It was an accumulation. But if you want a date, the night of your graduation dinner. After everyone went home. My graduation. Not because of you. Because of an exchange in the kitchen afterward. Your mother told me, while we were rinsing dishes, that she'd been thinking about what she wanted the next phase of her life to look like. I asked what she'd been thinking. She told me. It was a very detailed plan. It included you and her sister and the house and a trip to see the fjord that she'd been pricing out. I waited for the part that included me. There wasn't a part that included me. When I pointed that out, gently, she laughed and said, "Well, you'll be working, won't you?" And I realized she wasn't being cruel. She genuinely hadn't pictured me in it. I wasn't in the picture she had of her own life. That's when I knew. Hazel turned around. Her face had gone very pale. She said that. She said that. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't anything. She was happy. She was telling me about her plans. That's the part one can't get past, Hazel. She was happy. The future she'd been imagining for herself didn't require my absence. It just didn't require my presence. I was already gone. I was just still in the kitchen, doing the dishes. She came back to the table. She sat down. She picked up her coffee mug and looked at the inside of it, as if there might be instructions written there. "That was 18 months ago," she said. "Yes. You've known for 18 months. I've known what I was going to do for 18 months. I spent 12 of them trying to talk myself out of it. I spent 4 of them in mediation. I spent the last 2 preparing the paperwork and getting an apartment. You have an apartment. I have a lease. I move on the 2nd. She closed her eyes. "This is so much," she said. "I know. I'm angry, Dad. I know that too. I don't even know who I'm angry at right now. I want to be angry at you. I came down those stairs ready to be angry at you. And you." She didn't finish. She opened her eyes. She looked at me. And for a second I saw her at 9 years old, sitting in the same chair, trying to work out how a magic trick I'd done with 2 coins had worked. The look of someone reorganizing a small piece of the world. "You're not the villain," she said. "Are you? I'm not asking to be a hero, either. I want to be a man who lives somewhere quiet and reads books and has a relationship with his daughter that isn't filtered through somebody else. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to validate me. I'm not asking you to be on my side. I'm telling you the truth because you're entitled to it, and because the alternative is letting someone tell you a different one without me in the room." Footsteps overhead. The floorboards above the kitchen, the spot in the upstairs hallway where the 3rd joist had always groaned. My wife was awake. Hazel heard it too. Her eyes went to the ceiling and then back to me. "What do I?" she started. "You don't have to do anything. You don't have to take a position this morning. You don't have to defend me or her. You can go upstairs and hug your mother and have a perfectly normal conversation about pancakes, and I won't think any less of you. This isn't a test. It feels like a test. It isn't. I promise you it isn't. I'm not running a test on my own daughter at 7 in the morning." She let out a sound that was almost a laugh. Not quite. The first one of the morning that hadn't been disbelief. "Okay," she said. "Okay." The footsteps moved down the hall above us. The bathroom door closed. We had perhaps 10 minutes. "Dad," she said. "Yes." "The cards. The birthday cards. Are they? Can I see them? Careful here. This is the place where you could make her my ally, and you mustn't. She's not a chess piece. She's your daughter. Don't. They're not for that," I said. "For what?" "For convincing you. I don't want them used like that. They're embarrassing, frankly. They're a sad little drawer. I'd rather you didn't see them, because I'd rather you make up your mind about all of this without props." She studied me. "Okay," she said again, more slowly. "I'm sorry to do this to you over winter break, I added, after a beat. I considered every other option. None of them was honest. You could have told me on the phone. I could have. I didn't want to. You'd have spent the whole flight home with it. I'm going to spend the whole flight back with it. Yes. I'm sorry. She nodded. She wiped her face again. She seemed, for a moment, to be about to say something large, and then she opted instead for something small, which I respected. I think I'm going to go for a walk, she said. Take the long coat. It's colder than it looks. She stood. She paused with her hand on the back of the chair. Dad, yes. When you said you weren't asking me to take a side. Yes. Did you mean it? I looked at her. I thought about whether I meant it. I had, sitting in the rehearsals, been honest with myself about the answer. I owed her the same honesty now. I meant it as a rule for myself. I said, I won't ask you. I won't lobby you. I won't run down your mother to you. And I won't reward you for picking me. I'll keep my side of that whether you take a side or not. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't hope you'd eventually see things. Not the way I see them, exactly. Just clearly. I hope you'll see clearly. That's the most I'll ever ask. She nodded once. She left the kitchen. I heard her in the front hall, the rustle of the coat she'd put on, the click of the door. I stayed at the table. The next part is going to be harder than that was. Don't congratulate yourself yet. Pour another cup. Sit straight. She's coming. I poured another cup. I sat straight. I listened to my wife's slippers on the stairs. She came into the kitchen with her hair in the loose knot she always wore in the mornings. The silk robe my sister had given her 2 Christmases ago. The one I had wrapped because my sister had asked me to pick it up from the shop and I had paid for it as well, though my wife did not know that. And I had decided long ago that I would not be the kind of man who corrected such things. Morning, she said. Good morning. She poured herself coffee. She looked at the second mug, Hazel's untouched mug, and then at me. Where's our girl? She went for a walk. In this cold? Before breakfast. She wanted some air. My wife sat down. She had not, I noticed, looked at me directly yet. She rarely did in the mornings. She read the back of the coffee bag. She checked her phone. She arranged her robe. The eye contact was, as it had been for some years, the last thing offered if it was offered. You're up early, she said, echoing Hazel without knowing it. I told her. She looked up. There was the eye contact. You told her what? About the filing. A long pause. She set the phone down, screen side up on the table. A small tell. I had learned of the moments when she wanted me to see that she was about to be calm. You did that without me. I did. We agreed. We didn't agree. You wanted to tell her together. I said I'd think about it. I thought about it. And I decided I'd rather she heard it from one of us without the other one in the room, curating the reactions. Curating the reactions. She gave a small, dry laugh. Listen to you. You sound like a person who's been talking to a therapist. I've been talking to a therapist. I told you that in August, right? She took a sip of coffee. Right. So this morning, while I was asleep, you decided to ambush our daughter. It wasn't an ambush. It was a conversation. She asked questions, and I answered them. What questions? That isn't really your business. The temperature in the room changed. It always did at these moments, and I had learned over the last year and a half not to react to the temperature. The temperature was the weapon. The temperature was meant to make me clarify, soften, retreat, not really your business, I know I just mean, and then we would be inside her room again, where the rules were hers. I drank my coffee. Don't elaborate. Don't justify. You said the sentence. Let's sit. Not my business, she repeated. What my daughter and I discuss is not my business. What our daughter and I discuss is not yours. What she and you discuss isn't mine. Those are 2 different conversations. We can both have one. You've been planning this. For some time. For how long? Long enough that I'm not interested in arguing about whether I should have planned it. She set the coffee down. She placed her hands flat on the table, fingers spread. This was the posture in which, historically, she did her best work. the calm assembly of grievances presented as observations against which any objection on my part would be characterized as defensiveness. "You realize," she said, "that this is going to be very confusing for her. It might be. She's 23. She's just out of school. She's figuring out her life. And her father has decided to choose his. Choose his." She gave a small laugh again. "There it is. There's the line. You've been practicing that one." "I have, actually." She blinked. I had not, in 28 years of being married to her, conceded the small condescensions. I had usually swallowed them, or smiled past them, or in our worst stretches, walked out of the room. This was, I think, the first time I had ever simply agreed with one. "Yes, I've been practicing." "That's correct." She had no follow-up prepared, because the follow-up assumed embarrassment, and I had declined to be embarrassed. "Good. Keep going. Don't make a meal of it." "I'm going to be very straight with you," I said, "because I don't want this morning to turn into the kind of conversation we usually have, which is the one where I say a thing and you reframe the thing, and then we argue about your reframe instead of the thing." So, I told Hazel that I filed. I told her the timeline. I told her when she asked why. I didn't editorialize. I didn't tell her you were a bad mother, because you aren't. I didn't tell her you were a bad person, because you aren't. I told her how I'd been treated. I told her about the cards. I told her about the lake. The lake. The lake. What about the lake? That I wasn't invited. For 12 years. She pushed back from the table. She stood up. She paced 2 steps and stopped. "You weren't invited. It was a girls' trip. It was known to be a girls' trip. You acted like you wanted us to have it. I didn't want you to have it. Then what? I wanted you to have it the way a husband wants his wife to have something nice. I didn't want it the way an excluded man wants the people who excluded him to have something nice. Those are different wantings. You knew which one it was. So did I, in fairness. We both pretended it was the first one for 12 years. This is," she made a gesture I'd seen many times. The hand at the temple, the closed eyes, the slow exhale. "This is so unfair. This is so unfair what you're doing. 28 years and you're rewriting all of it. You're rewriting our daughter's childhood. I'm not rewriting it. I'm describing it. There's a difference. You're describing your version. Yes, it's the version I lived in. You lived in yours. I'm not asking you to give yours up. I'm telling our daughter that mine existed. You're poisoning her against me. Here it is. The accusation. Don't take the bait. Don't defend. The defense is the trap. Just answer." "No," I said. "I'm not. If I were poisoning her, I'd have done it for years while she was still living here with daily access. I had every opportunity. I never took one. I let her grow up with the version of you wanted her to have. I let her grow up with the version of me you wanted her to have too, which was, frankly, less generous. I'm not doing anything now except telling her, once, as an adult, what the actual arrangement was. She can decide what to do with that. She might decide nothing. She might decide I'm bitter. She might decide I'm right. None of those is in my control, and I'm not going to lobby her for any of them. You think she's going to side with you. I don't know what she's going to do. I told her I wasn't going to ask her to take a side, and I meant it. Of course you said that. Of course you said that. I won't ask you to take a side. That's the most effective way to ask someone to take a side. You know that. Maybe. Or maybe I said it because I meant it. You can decide which. She looked at me. Really looked for what was probably the longest interval of direct eye contact we'd had in a year. I watched her run through the strategies she had usually used in our conversations, the way I had once watched her play chess against her brother. The quick, fluttering survey of possible moves, none of which, this morning, looked very good. She tried the softest one. "I don't understand where this is coming from," she said. The voice had gone smaller. "I really don't. I thought we were okay." It was, I will admit, the only line that almost moved me. Not because I believed it, because she so plainly wanted, in that moment, to believe it herself. The story in which we had been okay was a story she had told for so long that telling it had become indistinguishable for her from its being true. I did not let it move me. I had rehearsed this one too. You didn't think we were okay, I said. You thought we were a unit you didn't have to maintain. Those are also different sentences. That's a horrible thing to say. It's not horrible. It's accurate. I'm not calling you a horrible person. I'm describing a long pattern. We can argue about it for another 6 hours, or you can sit down and we can talk about logistics. The house. The dog. What we tell the people who need to be told. Hazel's flight back. The holidays. Those things still have to be handled, and I'd rather handle them with you than through lawyers. You've already started through lawyers. I've filed. That's not the same as everything going through them. I prefer most of it didn't have to, but I'm out by New Year's. That part isn't on the table. New Year's. New Year's. You found an apartment. Yes. Where? I'd rather not say yet. You'd asterisk rather not. Asterisk. Not because I'm hiding it. Because I don't want to discuss with everyone we know before I've moved into it. I'll give you the address before I move. I'll give Hazel the address. I'd just like the first week to be quiet. She sat back down. She looked suddenly very tired. Not sad. I want to be precise about this. Tired. The way a person looks who has been running a long race and only just realized in the last lap that there was no finish line and never had been, that the running was the thing and the running was now over, and she didn't know what came after running. I felt, against my own intentions, a small ache for her. I did not move. Don't move. The ache is not the same as a reason to change course. You can feel sorry for someone and still leave. Those also are different sentences. I don't know what I'm supposed to do today, she said quietly. Whatever you'd like. I'll be out of the house most of the morning. I have appointments. I'll be back by lunch. Hazel will come back from her walk when she's ready. We can all eat dinner together tonight, or we cannot. You can tell me what you prefer. I'll accommodate it. You'll accommodate it. Yes. She almost laughed. It wasn't a dry laugh this time. It was something else. Something closer to recognition. You really have been practicing, she said. Yes. How long? A while. She nodded. She picked up her phone again. She did not look at the screen. She just held it, the way a person holds a small, familiar object when they don't know what else to do with their hands. I want to talk to her before you do. When she gets back, she said. You'll have plenty of time. I told you I'll be out. I want to talk to her alone. I won't be there. I just said so. I don't want you to have set the terms and then. I haven't set the terms. I've described what happened. You're free to describe what happened from your side. She's an adult. She can hold both. You make it sound so reasonable. It is reasonable. That's what's been making you angriest this whole conversation, I think. It's not that I'm leaving. It's that I'm leaving without raising my voice. It was perhaps the only sharp thing I'd said all morning, and I regretted it instantly. Not because it wasn't true, but because it had been said for me and not for her, and I had promised myself I would not, this morning, indulge the small private satisfactions. I corrected the course before she could answer. I'm sorry. That last part wasn't necessary. Strike it. She looked at me for a long moment. Strike it, she repeated. Like a transcript. Like a transcript. She set the phone down. She picked up her coffee. She drank from it. Her hand, I noticed, was steady, steadier than I'd have predicted, given the morning. She was a strong woman, my wife. She was a great many things I had loved once, and a great many things I had stopped loving, and a great many things I had never quite known what to do with. The mistake, on my part, had been believing for too long that the inventory could be balanced. The front door opened. The cold from outside came down the hall ahead of the sound of Hazel's boots on the mat. My wife and I both turned our heads toward the sound in the same instant, in the same way, the way we had turned toward every sound our daughter had ever made in this house for 23 years. Hazel appeared in the kitchen doorway. Her cheeks were red from the walk. She had a leaf stuck to one knee of her jeans. She looked from her mother to me and back again, and I could see her making the small, fast read that children of long marriages learn to make. The temperature of the room, who had spoken last, whose silence was the live wire. "I'm back," she said unnecessarily. "Good walk?" I asked. "It was cold. Told you." My wife stood up. She crossed the kitchen and put a hand on Hazel's arm, not to embrace her, but to steer her gently toward the dining room. "Come sit with me a minute, honey. Just us." Hazel didn't move. She looked at me over her mother's shoulder. I gave her, I hope, nothing. No nod, no encouragement, no flicker of say this or don't say that. Just my face, which she had known her whole life, and which this morning had told her one large true thing, and which would, from now on, tell her only the true things, large and small, as long as I had a face to do it with. "Okay, Mom," she said. They went into the dining room. The door didn't close. We'd never had a door between those two rooms. But my wife's voice dropped to the low pitch she used for serious things, and Hazel's voice, when it answered, was quiet and careful in her own. I sat at the kitchen table. I finished my coffee. I rinsed the mug and Hazel's untouched mug, and I set them on the rack to dry. Then I went upstairs to dress for my appointments, because the day, as I had been telling myself for 18 months, was going to be a long one, and the only way through a long day was to begin it.
Thanks for listening.